Welcome to the Sewing Report. I'm Jennifer Moore, helping you discover your love of sewing crafts and DIY projects. If that interests you, feel free to subscribe to this channel for all that and more. And we do a live stream every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so come join me and chat. And I am excited because for the first time in what feels like ages, I have completed an actual sewing project. Yeah, it's in the bag, literally. So I'm going to tell you all about this. This is the Noodlehead Poolside Tote, and I did document the whole making process, so let's cut to that right now. This is a rather roomy tote with options for either a front zippered or slip pocket, and has a curved cutout in the middle. To cut out pattern pieces, I really prefer to use a rotary cutter whenever I can, and a ruler for the straight cuts. For more precise cuts, I will use fabric scissors. These large washers work as pattern weights, and they're inexpensive to boot. The main pattern pieces are cut on the fold, and you'll need at least 1.25 yards of both your exterior and lining fabrics. You can apply interfacing either before or after cutting out the pattern pieces. For this project, I chose to do it after by lightly pressing, then cutting, then a more thorough pressing with a pressing cloth so I don't get glue dots all over my iron. One interesting aspect of the poolside tote is the curved pieces, including the handles, handle accents, and facing. To get the curves to fold, the instructions call for you to baste a 1/2 inch seam allowance to make that part a lot easier, and I really like this method. For the facing, you baste 2 lines of stitching and gather the outer layer in order to create a cleaner and easier fold line because, as you know, it's a bit hard to fold in a curve. I like to use Elmer's washable school glue in a fine tip bottle to keep those edges in place. This isn't in the pattern, but I added an interior slip pocket using the basic right sides together inside out method. There's an entire video dedicated to this sewing basic, and I've linked it here. It does take me several hours to get all of the pattern pieces cut out, prepped, pressed, but once you take the time to do all that, the actual sewing process goes pretty quickly. After sewing the pocket to the back lining, I did add a sewing report label for an added touch. Here is a close-up shot of the embroidery machine, the Brother PE800, stitching out the monogram on the front slip pocket fabric. Moving on to the actual bag construction, it's not insane and I can complete all of the steps in a few hours. You do need a ruler and an air-soluble pen, which is what I prefer, to mark placement lines for the pocket and handle accents. Fabri-Tac glue works great for securing the pieces to the main part of the bag. Another handy sewing notion, and I've talked about these a lot, wonder clips. I have both the smaller and larger sizes. Now that you've temporarily tacked down all of these pieces, the slip pocket and the handle accents, then you need to go back and actually permanently sew them to both the front and back exterior pieces. I tend to use the small wonder clips for keeping the main pattern pieces together for sewing. Then pressing the seams open and then going back and sewing the ends of the boxed corners and doing my darndest to line up all those seams. A couple other extras were a stiffer base for the bag and purse feet. When I make holes in fabric using an awl or some other type of pointed tool, I dab the area with fray check to stop the fabric from unraveling. I sandwich this thick sew-in interfacing between the main fabric and the lining. And in my opinion, the trickiest part is sewing on the facing to the top of the tote, then pressing it to the inside and pinning or clipping the lining in between the main fabric and the facing, and that's where those large wonder clips really are a lifesaver. Now on to the last step, which is edge stitching all of these layers together just inside the facing. In a previous video, I showed you how to make these awesome blinged out lace butterflies, and we are hand sewing a couple to the front of the tote bag for some decoration. Running thread through thread heaven really helps to cut down on tangles and makes hand sewing a lot easier. I love this version of the poolside tote, so let's take a look at it in all its finished glory, especially that really cute ribbon key loop on the inside. And we're back here again. I love the way this bag turned out. It's a drastic improvement over the first time I tried to make this pattern. In my first attempt, I used foam interfacing. I think that was too much for the bag. This time around, I used canvas fabric for the main fabric, and I did interface it with Pellon SF101. I also interfaced the lining fabric as well. So it definitely gives it a little bit of stability, but without it being too bulky, because the problem I ran into was when I tried to sew the facing and enclose everything, the foam interfacing, I just think, really made it a lot more difficult. Probably good for an advanced beginner. I think this is Cloud 9 organic canvas, and I got this off of like a mass drop a long time ago. I've had this fabric forever. It's a really pretty aqua print with clouds on it. Love it. I used this cotton and steel silver canvas. One of my favorite probably prints of all time. I love this particular pattern by Cotton and Steel, and I have it in several colors. In fact, I made these handles years ago. When I first made this pattern, I used this same fabric for the handles, and I accidentally made 4 handles instead of 2. So I saved these, and now I get to bust them out again. And then the lining is an art gallery print, and then I used an Anna Maria Horner print for the inside slip pocket. And yes, the butterflies are making another appearance. I decided to embellish the bag with a couple of them, and I blinged them out with some rhinestone crystals. If you have not checked out Noodlehead, definitely do so. She's got a lot of great patterns, and I would say they range anywhere from beginner to a more advanced level of sewing. And if you're looking for something to watch next, I have a whole video just on making these amazing, gorgeous freestanding lace butterflies using my embroidery machine, the Brother PE800. You should definitely check it out because it was a lot of fun. Anyways, I'm Jennifer Moore for the Sewing Report. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.